Hey guys, welcome back to another Jobsticker's weekly job seeker podcast. It's been a while. I've been out all summer, so appreciate your guys' patience for anyone who does follow. And happy spooky season. It's officially Halloween time, my favorite time of year, considering my birthday is less than 2 weeks away. So I'm a October baby. And I think it's kind of mandatory that you're a Halloween baby if you're born in October. But thanks again for joining in. I want to talk today briefly about some strategies for parents out there that are on the job hunt. I myself, I have a little 3.5-year-old and some other things that go with that. As you might know, as a parent, your time gets pulled away, right? You get busy, you get caught up in between tasks, or you don't finish a task, you forget about it, or a lot of different things when you're juggling a lot of balls in the air when you have a little one at home, especially if you're remote working and your child's around you all the time. So he's taking a nap right now, which is like the golden hours, couple 2-3 hours of time where I can kind of get through as much as I want. But if you're a parent that was like recently laid off or furloughed, and you're at home with a little one, like I said, trying to balance the schedules from the time they wake up until it's bedtime is a little tricky. And you got to figure out when you're going to do job hunting, right? I mean, the key is though, progress. Progress is key. I'll repeat that. Progress is key. So here are some ideas to stay productive to ensure you're trying to get back into the workforce properly. So if you are considering continuing education or training on the side right now to stay ahead of the competition, kudos to you. So if you're balancing both the at-home parent and the job hunt and then sprinkle in the actual training, now you're doing a lot more on your plate. So I always say, first and foremost, check in with yourself. Make sure your balance and your equilibrium are two off, right? If you're adding training over here, make sure that your mental health isn't being affected. Make sure you balance yourself constantly. I've learned that the hard way through the years. I try to take on too much a lot. And you just got to breathe and know that the most important thing is your little one. And then everything falls off of that, right? So if you can just figure out how to make sure you keep in balance, let's discuss some strategies that lets you maybe add a little bit more to your plate, just so you can kind of keep competitive, shorten lead times until you get your next role, and feel that self-worth that, hey, I'm working, I'm providing for my family, I'm also spending time with my little one. You just feel like things are in harmony. And that's a great feeling to get to. And not to mention, hey, cutting a lawn, playing chess, maybe you're a chess advocate, watching the ball game. You got baseball playoffs starting, football season right now. Hockey is just starting, basketball is just starting. So things get in the way, but doesn't necessarily mean you can tune out some of your passions. It's just maybe put those on the back burner for maybe the Friday night. You decide to just use that time after the little ones go to bed to get caught up on your favorite sports team or whatever. But just balance. And it comes down to scheduling, right? Scheduling's key here. So going back to the training. So I always preach to donate time if you can for experiential learning, right? So if you can pull that off, another way to balance, if you could stay balanced, another strategy to think of is look for experiential learning opportunities. And that can kind of parallel with that freelancing gig economist type thinking, where essentially you're filling the gap with relevant work still, because now that you're laid off and you're at home with the little one, you're trying to figure out what to do. It kind of helps you keep moving, and it might actually pad some income on the side, right? So if you're a technical writer by day, look into some technical writing freelance gigs. There's a ton of websites out there for us writers, especially for like me, resume writer. There's a lot of websites out there that'll provide you leads that you can kind of bid on or email, or, everything has their own way of setting up. So think about contracting, think about consulting, freelancing, or I hate to do it, but if there's a way you can pull off, maybe a couple hours a week of free experiential learning that maybe you can go and get on site at somewhere that you're interested in working, in an industry at. So maybe you want to be in healthcare. Maybe there's your neighbor says, hey, you can come shadow me at the healthcare office, once or twice a week, whatever. As long as you can figure out how to take care of your little one at home or little ones, that might be something worth it, depending on who you have as like the babysitting thing, and obviously the cost benefit analysis. So don't put yourself in a poorhouse either. But again, just think of that. And the key here is, if you decide to do some consultancy work or freelance work, the one where you actually might start getting paid, start planting those seeds to solicit those sales from friends, from family, social network connections, colleagues that might be in need of something that you provide. So the key here is being active and staying on the track and making progress. You never know where one of those seeds are going to start blooming into some sort of possible actual money. Next, build a portfolio, right? So read industry blogs or trades. Stay current and relevant to what you're doing. Don't lose all the knowledge you've gained all these years just because you just got laid off. Keep with the times. Google News, huge advocate of Google News. And then possibly filter these new attained skills that you might be acquiring with the freelance or the training or experiential learning or education, what have you, and start to get these into your resume. Because when you start your job hunt again, you want to make sure that the hiring managers aren't seeing red flags. What have you been doing for the last year and a half? Raising your kid that's very noble, and a lot of people, a lot of hiring managers will understand that, hey, that's admirable, you took on that role, but also show that, hey, at night you did some things too, right, to keep fresh and still be relevant. Because why should they open their checkbook for you, right? You need them to know, hey, I'm worth every dollar. Please understand, this is I'm still up to speed. I just haven't been in the trenches, so to speak, in a year and a half, but I still kind of get what's happening with the players in the industry and the disruption that might be occurring or what have you. So you got to keep track of this stuff for your resume. We call it a brag book in the industry. Whether you're working or not working, you got to keep maintaining what skills you've acquired anytime you're doing anything. So then your resume, which is your career snapshot, your kind of your marketing collateral, it goes on there, and it shows that these people who are making decisions will see that you've been doing things that are active and relevant to what they have going on. And also a way to avoid the whole what have you been doing since, right? So that was the other note. So when they ask you what you've been doing since you were laid off, this will help you feel confident in having a presentable answer that would work. Other ideas other than the consultancy, contracting, temporary, and free internship employment. Do virtual learning sessions. You got podcasts, workshops, webinars. Volunteerism in the community or with a friend with a business. Possible entrepreneurial ventures. Again, you could parlay that contract gig work into maybe a full-time outfit, right? So maybe you get a website going and you start honing in on how you're going to kind of get that lead generation, both inbound and out there pursuing possible warm leads, right? And then finally, any projects that you can take on from a former colleague or former employer, excuse me. So I know my father-in-law, when he got laid off, he was a geologist. He kept working for a few years as a consultant because they knew how good he was. He just wasn't on the payroll anymore. And that was back when, a lot of people were getting laid off. So luckily he was able to pad some income and continue working as a consultant in the geological space. So just keep that in mind. Now, what about that resume gap? Resume gaps are red flags, right? But they're not as like harsh as they used to be. I know when I was recruiting back in the 2000s, resume, gaps and job hopper, that's a different story. But yeah, resume gaps aren't as glaring of a red flag as a beam of light as they were. So, employment gaps, yes, there are going to be some red flags for some recruiters, but there's always a way to reduce that burden of the employment gap, especially in a post-pandemic world that we're kind of getting towards. Most employers understand, and they'll be empathetic to the candidate who gap was caused by some sort of global health crisis. I mean, this is something, first one I've ever been through, first one we all been through. So on your cover letter, I'd say be honest and direct and quick when mentioning your gap. An example might be, hey, I lost my job with, ABC company due to the COVID pandemic, and then move on. And then on the resume, you can insert a role to help fill that gap on the resume under your experience. A type of role would be that volunteering, freelancing, gig economy work, contracting, continuing education, upskilling, training, even at-home project-based work that might relate, that you can spin it towards that targeted role of yours. And then, and for example, teacher might mention her educating her children at home while working on additional certification. All that can mesh into a single job under your experience, with that date reflecting the year you were laid off to the present day. So I hope that wasn't too quick for you. Again, you work at home parents, or any parents that are laid off at home, we're behind you. We get it. It's tricky balancing. It's a balancing act, and it's tricky with the little ones. And obviously, they need their time with mom and dad. So make sure you remember that first and foremost. But once you're done being mom and dad, instead of maybe jumping on the Netflix, maybe you can start doing some other things that keeps you fresh, and that confidence will still be inside you. Then you're not going to lose everything you've worked so hard to get up until that point, get acquired up until that point. So if you need help, reach out, be glad to help. I'm always here with some ideas and ways to kind of collaborate to just make sure we get you set and get you rolling again. So I appreciate you guys tuning in this week, and I'll be back hopefully next week. I'm going to try to do this every week again, but with my birthday week, we're going to be traveling and things. So we'll see, but I'm definitely going to make this a habit again. I had to take the summer off though, get some sand and some sun. Again, go get out there and make progress, be consistent, stick to a schedule. If you got to alter the schedule from week to week, do it. Whatever it takes to keep this equilibrium and balance in your world.